Yeah. We always go up there.
Not much.
Not much.
Not much.
Not much.
What's expensive everywhere?
Well, yeah, it's been a while since I've been in the market, but when I'm on.
There's we always go up there for the one like fall farm thing. I forget the name of the farm, but.
All right, welcome everybody. I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. Can I just get a thumbs up from the folks online that you can hear us? Cool. All right, so some of you I know well, some of you I don't. So we can begin with some introductions, but this is our Regional Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. It's a standing committee that we've had on and off for about 20 years. The most recent era of BPAC started about August of 2019. So a few years ago, we've had, different folks on the committee, but I appreciate everybody being here. So I'll go through the agenda. We'll start with some introductions, get to know each other. I'll give a sort of MPO 101 and BPAC orientation since we have a few new members. And then Gunit from NDOT will give us a presentation on the Metro Nashville Safety Program, Vision Zero, and then FHWA will give us Safe Streets for All grant program. And the notice of funding came out yesterday, so I'm sure many of you are interested in that. Then we'll do some member updates and then get you guys out of here. All right, so let's just go around the room and I guess online as well. Just say your name, your organization, and your favorite mode of transport. Taylor, you want to start?
Hi, Taylor Lee, with GNRC. I'm the project delivery coordinator. Favorite mode of transport, I would have to say I love subways. I think if I had to do any kind of transit, that'd be my favorite.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shay Northfield, TIP coordinator at GNRC, and my favorite mode of transit is bike.
All right, Daniel Caparella, senior planner at GNRC, and mine is also the bike.
Matthew Cushing, bicycle and pedestrian planner at Vanderbilt University. My most days is the cargo bike with my son on the back.
Vinay Sani, Vision Zero coordinator with Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure. And my favorite mode is being a pedestrian because that's what I am all the time, pretty much. Most of the time, 80%.
I'm Quinn Evans-Siegel with the Metro Council. Favorite probably would also be walking. I don't get to do it as much as I would like, but it definitely makes me the happiest.
Hey, Daniel McDonald with the Multimodal Planning Office at TDOT. I normally bike to work, but I would say that taking the bus is probably my favorite, way more relaxing.
Stacy Morrison, TDOT, Office of Community Transportation. I wanted to go with flying, but that's not really common to commute flying, right? But so I'll go with walking.
Herman Wright with TDOT OCT. I would say walking.
I'm Nick Tuttle with Gallatin. Can I say car?
It's a mode.
I'm right there.
All right. Eric Oak, I'm the design director at the Civic Design Center, and I took the 56 and the 8. So whenever I can bring someone actually with me on the bus is my favorite time. Show someone how to use the bus who hasn't ridden it. But probably the bike is my most fun way to commute.
Zach Coleman, FHWA, transportation planning specialist there. I'm gonna go roller skates.
Oh, that's a good one.
Let's switch it up a little bit.
Planner with NDOT, and I'll say bike as well. Dahlia Group, planning technician at NDOT, and I'll have to say subway or train.
Right, we'll jump to the folks online. Brian, if you want to start with you.
Just got the city planner here, so excited to be here and participate. I actually kind of agree with Nick. Always probably go to for that. So I was happy because we're helping to slot it to the United States here.
Move on to let's go Eric.
He's muted.
Okay. Tanisha, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Tanisha Hall with Fairpoint Planning. My favorite mode is walking. I love walking in my neighborhood. I love walking everywhere. I'm a fast walker. So if any of you are other fast walkers, please join me. I love it. I love to have walking meetings too.
All right, let's go to Lieutenant Williams.
Good morning, I'm James Williams with the Metro Nashville Police Department in the Traffic Division, and I'd say walking is also my favorite as well.
All right, let's see who else is on here. Joanna?
Hello, Joanna McCall with GNRC. It's getting warmer out, so it's about time for us to pull out our tandem bicycle. So that's my favorite mode.
And then we'll end with Sarah.
Hey, I'm Sarah Lovett from Murfreesboro, representing deadly Rutherford County. It's not been a good couple of weeks for us for bikes and peds. But my favorite mode of transportation is to load up my camping gear on my bike and head out into the woods and stay gone for several days.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Anybody else online? All right. So I'll just give everyone a little bit of an overview of what we do here at GNRC, especially at the MPO, and sort of the role of BPAC so that everybody knows what's expected, and also the resources that we have to offer. So just to give you an overview of the geography of GNRC, it's these 13 counties are our development district, and then we add Murray County just to the south, Williamson County for our metropolitan planning organization. So that's where transportation planning happens. Also includes BPAC as well. But the main counties that we're concerned about in terms of BPAC are those 7 counties in Middle Tennessee, including Murray as well. So here's a little bit of a better map of the different metropolitan planning organizations and rural planning organizations across the state. As you can see, there's our Nashville MPO just in the middle in gray. We also have a couple RPOs that we serve more of the rural planning, Middle Tennessee RPO, as well as the Dale Hollow RPO. And then you can just see the other MPOs across the state. So Memphis and Knoxville and Chattanooga and some of the other smaller ones. So what do we do as an MPO? What does that have to do with BPAC? So we have 3 main core products that we're responsible for per federal regulations. The most important one probably is the Regional Transportation Plan. It's a 20-year plan for the region, really establishes the vision and goals that every community as well as stakeholder in our region thinks are important, as well as priorities and investments throughout that 20+ year timeline to figure out how we're actually going to invest federal, state, and local dollars into our transportation system. And the next adoption for that is scheduled for February of 2026. So we'll start that pretty soon, and you guys will be involved in that. I'll get into that a little bit later. Our Transportation Improvement Program, which Shay manages, is our 4-year funding program. It actually implements the investments identified in the Regional Transportation Plan. And so every project that's in our TIP, as we refer to it, is a funded project that obviously includes many bike and pedestrian projects, whether it's sidewalks, bike lanes, greenways, any active transportation related facility on any of our roadways. And then we have our Transportation Planning Work Program, which is a 2-year program that really identifies the planning activities. So whether it's a study to figure out where to put a greenway or a bike lane or a sidewalk, or any other study that we're using our planning dollars to figure out how to do better decision making. So all 3 of those core products really make up all of the major roadway, transit, bike ped investments in Middle Tennessee. Hey, Robert. So where does the BPAC sit in terms of our organizational structure? So the BPAC is an advisory committee, and we have a couple advisory committees. Our main board, which is made up of our mayor's, governor's office, transit representatives from WEGO and other regional transit agencies, as well as county highway officials, and Federal Transit Administration and FHWA as well. So that's our decision-making body that actually votes on how investments are allocated in our region. We also have a transportation coordinating committee that is more of the local planners and local staff, technical experts that inform the policy board. And then our BPAC is you all. So, local and state agency staff, universities, traffic safety officials, nonprofits, anyone interested in improving walking and biking conditions in our region. And then we also have a freight advisory committee and an environmental roundtable that inform the other elements of our transportation plan. So what are you all responsible for? So I think probably the main thing is to inform the bicycle and pedestrian planning and programming activities. So an example of that is the regional transportation plan. So as we go through our regional transportation plan update, we'll be involving you every time we meet on different elements, whether they're data related or project related, prioritization, and the goals of the plan to make sure that the bicycle and pedestrian elements are considered in every single project and every element of the plan. We also collaborate to address bike ped issues across the region, whether it's project delivery or safety. I know we'll be talking a lot about safety today. This body is really a forum to talk about any bike ped issues, bounce ideas off each other, have presentations like we have today from NDOT to show best practices, bring folks in from external organizations to show us, what other regions or other states are doing. And then helping apply analysis and regional planning efforts. Some of you may remember we went through a data analysis effort called the Non-Motorized Risk Index, where we identified areas that were unsafe for bicyclists and pedestrians based on a number of different risk factors. So we'll be updating that index, and you'll be involved in making sure that we're considering roadway design and driver behavior and any sort of data analysis that would need to be included in that process. And then, of course, highlighting and promoting best practices of the region. We've developed a habit of talking about projects around the region that have been completed. So an example of that is Mount Juliet Town Center Trail. We had an engineer from Mount Juliet come in and present on the development of that project, which is probably one of the best projects in our region in the last 15 or so years. And then we actually took a field trip out to Mount Juliet and walked and rode to the trail and had some donuts. So that's also an option. So if you guys have different projects that you'd like to highlight throughout, the next year, let me know, and we'll make sure to get that scheduled and on the agenda. So really, your roles are to represent your community or agency in regional conversations surrounding the bike and pedestrian elements of transportation planning, attend and participate in meetings, provide data and information, expertise on bike ped issues, provide feedback on our different activities, and serve as an ambassador for regional coordination efforts. What does that get you as an advisory committee member? Access to any of our research and analytics. We have a pretty amazing data team that can pretty much answer any question that you have, whether it's what's the crash history on this roadway, or where are people traveling on foot or biking. And then participating in regional studies and planning activities that can be through our core products, or it can also be through different studies that we do. Having a forum for collaboration, if you've got an issue that maybe it's safety, maybe it's transit access, let us know, and we'll make sure that we get experts in the room to talk about that issue and make sure that everyone is educated on it. And then, of course, access to best practices, lessons learned, and expertise of our different members and peers. This is a group of people who know a lot about bike ped. And so I think that mostly we'll have the answers to any questions you guys might have. A couple of highlights on data tools. On the left is our active transportation application. It's a GIS application where you can go in and turn on different layers like sidewalks, bike lanes, greenways, crash history, vulnerable populations, pretty much any active transportation related data layer you can turn on and see how they interact with each other and go to different issue areas that you might want to see in our region. Our crash dashboards, the one that's featured there, is our month-to-date crash dashboards. You can see how many crashes by mode have occurred in our region over the past, I think it's 5 years, up till the previous month that we're in. So right now, I believe we have up until January. And then, as I mentioned, our non-motorized risk index, if you want to see areas that are low, medium, or high risk for people walking and biking, that is available as well. So if you go to our website, that little data center circle is where you're going to access most of our data, and then as well as our plans are all on our website. So I'll include that in a follow-up email with our slides. And then again, our data resources, transportation facilities, demographics, system performance, environmental, any, population forecasts, growth and development, as well as safety information. So any question you might have, we've probably got an answer, or at least can point you in the right direction. And then here's just some links to our different interactive tools, whether it's our regional plan map, or our TIP database, which is up on the top there. Any amendments or modifications that we might have made to projects that are contained within our TIP, as well as data dashboards. So a couple of highlights on things that we'll be working on as a committee in the next 2 years. So as we begin our regional transportation plan update, we'll be asking you to review and comment on data collection needs in the application of modeling tools that will be used in the major update. We'll have presentations, discussions, make sure that you all understand exactly what is being asked of you so that you can provide feedback on all of those tools. Help evaluate and refine the regional goals and objectives that address bicycle and pedestrian safety. The last time around, safety was voted as the most important goal, whether it was the BPAC, the TCC, or our policy board. They all voted that safety was our most important goal. Helping establish the project evaluation criteria. So are there certain data indicators that we need to be looking at, like crash history or volume of non-motorized users to inform the actual projects that are being considered in our regional transportation plan, and then establish performance measures to track progress towards our goals and objectives. And then next year, we'll actually get into identifying the candidate projects for the plan that advance the goals and objectives, and you'll get to see, some of the improvements from local governments and transit agencies, as well as TDOT, that are being considered for the long-range plan. Review and comment on the actual document itself, and help identify any strategies that could be deployed following the adoption of the plan. So that's pretty much all I have in terms of orientation. I know that was a lot of information. I'm happy to take any questions, but I think, a lot of them will be answered as we go throughout the process. So does that all make sense to everybody? Any questions?
The long-range plan will just kind of have check-in points where the committee will kind of have some focus areas up front. So it's kind of what I took.
Yes. So we'll have check-ins, every other month as we develop different elements of the plan. Any other questions? All right. Ganit, I will hand it off to you to present on Vision Zero for Nashville. And let me pull up the actual PowerPoint.
My name is Ganit Sani. Vision Zero coordinator with NDOT. Before this, I worked with City of Miami Beach. Primarily, most of my work before that was with Texas A&M Transportation Institute as a researcher. Worked in several areas of transportation, including all modes related research and some commercial vehicle related research. You can look up my profile, published several papers on transportation engineering. Before that, I was working with an international agency on with conducting independent research on traffic injuries. So that gives a little bit background of the profile, why I was I wanted to pursue transportation safety from the very beginning. I have some papers published about concrete as well, so green concrete, but that just kind of was my background, and I started in civil engineering and switched to transportation. And the reason I switched was the factor that a human wasn't involved in when I was conducting research on concrete. It was a very, it was like, okay, I'm studying materials, and just there is no life, there is no human involved. And it was, it pretty fast got very boring. And then I switched over to, the field that really resonated with me was transportation. And so that's how I got into safety. And then I just met some great people who have done great research. And I just went into research and started doing a lot of transportation safety related work and understanding more about it. So bringing back to Vision Zero with Nashville Department of Transportation, we started with Vision Zero before council adopted before council committed to Vision Zero. We started drafting the plan, and I'll show that in the later slides. Well, Vision Zero is actually safety wrapped in a multifaceted approach. Like it's not the approach that we used to take probably 50 years back, saying we probably need to reduce crashes on the road. We realized it very early on that the safety is a problem. It's not a new thing that we realized that safety is an issue. We realized it when our military was getting killed, and we realized that on the roads when we spend so much money on training them. So we realized it back then during the wars that we were having safety issues, but we just never thought through it as a holistic approach, as a multifaceted approach. We were very narrow on what safety looks like. So Vision Zero is a multifaceted approach, and now we have a better understanding of how can we reach that goal. How can we reach out? It's a public health concern. It's a similar concern how we talk about plane crashes, that those shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't be having a plane crash anywhere in the world. We shouldn't be having any person die through, when we decided to do a bunch of research on, eradicating polio. We did so much work on that. That was a public health issue, and we fast acted on it. That's what we need from the safety standpoint on our roads, because we use it, everyone use it every day. So that's how we got to this point. And it's an approach which includes several factors. It's not one factor leading to zero crashes. It's going to be several factors, several components of safety that is going to get us there. So the objective of this is to create safer streets for everyone. The same objective we had years and years back, but with some prioritization, with some data driven, and understanding that it's a multifaceted approach, understanding it's not going to be just one factor that's going to lead us to that. This is the program that actually prioritizes safety focused projects and implements them with every field, not just dedicating on the side that this is a safety department and they're going to work on safety, but integrating it into every agency, every department, every person in the community. This approach with Nashville, we based it on 5 E's and safe systems approach. The 5 E's are engineering, enforcement, education, encouragement, and evaluation. And this ties directly with the safe systems approach, which was suggested to us by FHWA: safe road users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, safe roads, and post-crash care. And understanding a pattern here that there are 4 safes except for 1 post-crash care. Post-crash care is a very important element. So, which means we are not saying that the crashes are not going to happen one day. Out of a sudden, there's not going to be crashes on our roads. Well, this component speaks for itself. There's going to be crashes, but we should not have a person get paralyzed or die in that crash. We should be able to respond to it either beforehand or after that crash happens. So talking more about the 5 E's of Vision Zero, engineering, is the primary one. This is how we get there faster. This is why we allocate most of the designated funding towards the this E of engineering. This is divided into quick build, capital, transformative level projects. Some projects are going to get done within, you can respond to the crashes within months. This is going to be more of a responsive approach. And then capital transformative is more of a holistic approach of a corridor. As we are seeing a lot of crashes on this particular corridor, we need to do something about it. Let's think of the land use. Let's start from the very basic as what the land use is around that corridor. How can we work with that land use that has been set on that corridor? What can we do? So that's the approach we take for engineering. Education as an encouragement is primary for getting community involved, getting everyone involved into it. It's not going to be just an agency or a council which is going to be able to bring this to completion. It's going to take every community member's dedication. So that's the role of education and encouragement. So 2 E's dedicated to the community. Enforcement, a very critical E, especially in the vulnerable areas, school zones, high injury network. This is where we are seeing so many crashes. And and it's not a new thing. If you put a police vehicle and do not put a police officer inside that vehicle, people are going to slow down. That's the effect that you see from enforcement. You put speed feedback trailers on these corridors. You will start seeing the effect of people slowing down in that corridor. And then at one point there is a mindset that that there is a possibility you might get, even barely slapped on the wrist. So that works. And then evaluation. Any program, we have several programs, and evaluation is a very critical part. And the most important part in evaluation is the community. That's why we have advisory committee, who is a 15-member group of residents of Davidson County, who are just volunteering their time to work with NDOT to actually bring this goal to completion. They don't know if they would be still in Davidson County or not. They don't know if what it's going to be like after 5 years, but they're just dedicated individuals. And that's what we need from the community. That's the support that we need to get. So these 5 E's all together make up that goal of Vision Zero even remotely possible. And that's why we work towards that goal. Going forward as how we got here, the action plan, we created an action plan for Vision Zero, which was published around February of 2022. This action plan was created. It includes all our principles, goals, objectives. And then after that, we had a base of what Vision Zero is going to look like. Then the 5-year implementation plan is taking the short steps of 5 years as what are the milestones after 5 years we're going to reach. So 5 years of Vision Zero implementation, what the projects are going to be looking like in the next 5 years. What are the different activities we are going to be doing as part of Vision Zero? That's what's in the implementation plan. And all of this went into the council and the previous leadership committing to this goal in the whole county, in the whole region, that we are going to pursue this particular goal. It looks very far-fetched. It's a hard sell. It's not everyone buys it, but when you start thinking about it, when you educate yourself on it, you can feel it. You can understand the human approach in this goal. That led us to create, in those plans, we created a high injury network to prioritize our projects. The Vision Zero is for the whole county, but we need to start somewhere. So we created a high injury network, which was based on the vulnerable road users, vulnerable areas, traffic deaths and serious injuries where they're currently occurring. So more of a reactive approach for the projects which we are going to do. And I will talk a little more about the proactive approaches that we are taking, because it's going to be a multifaceted approach, as I said. So we're going to look into that further. Going to the next slide. So this is what happened from Vision Zero, year 0 to year 1. So this is the comparison of September to October up to October 2022 and September 2022 to October 2023 crashes. We saw a slight reduction. This is not statistically significant reduction, but it is a slight reduction. We saw a slight reduction in the crashes. This may not continue for year 2, so this is not a great win for year 1 of Vision Zero, but it's still a reduction that we saw. This would have to be tied to where we did the projects, or was it something else that led to this reduction? That's another analysis. But for now, we saw a decrease in the crashes, but we also saw some increase. If you can see here, there is a red on bicycle related crashes, and that went from 10 crashes to 13 crashes. And that was the only one that increased in the county when we did the analysis. So that led us to think that we need to keep up with our bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. And our fatal crashes with pedestrians were very high. We cannot be in the 3 digits of fatal crashes with having a goal of 0 at one point of time. So that's why these numbers were not taken as a big success. However, a good learning point and a good starting point for Vision Zero. Going forward onto the next slide, Dan, can you make that as a slide in a slide mode, like the slideshow?
I have it on the other screen, but I don't know why it's not.
Zoom slideshow.
From the
Loaded it not. Interview. Nope.
maybe on the top left, second one from current slide. On the top left, yeah, this from the current slide.
Well, yeah,
it's not
it's
presented.
yeah, it's because it's on. Why it's not.
Right.
Okay, let's try this. Is that good?
No, that's actually no, that's not presenting. Okay, yeah, that one's good. So planning. So what happened in year 1? That what were our goals and what we did in year 1. So the quick this starting from some of those projects that we did, like I'm talking about just the engineering projects here. So starting with the quick builds, we had several different types of quick builds, some which can be completed within months, some which can be completed within a year or a year and a half. Those are the quick build projects, and there are several listed here. That all including that and the planning activities were a major portion of year 1. The fatal crash investigations, recognizing where the unsignalized intersections are, recognizing where the unsignalized, unmarked crossings, putting those all together to create projects for the coming years, assessment of posted speed limits on the corridors, school zone traffic calming, safety studies on the high entry network. This was a major portion of our year 1. So it wasn't a lot of implementation in year 1 that a lot of projects were implemented, but more like we planned a lot for the year 2 to 5 that are yet to come, or we are in year 2 right now. So this was a major portion of that. Also, proactive Vision Zero initiative. There are several. We have a reactive approach where we focus on the high injury network where current crashes are happening, but we are not able to keep up with the ones where the crashes are not there are not several crashes, but we don't want crashes to happen in those areas, like neighborhoods. Children play in those neighborhoods. People walk and jog in those neighborhoods. So we shouldn't be having crashes in those neighborhoods. Safe Routes to School program. Should we, are we waiting for a child to die in front of a school? No. So that's a proactive approach. Tactical urbanism program, giving the community a chance to be able to look into their neighborhood and say, yes, we imagine our neighborhood to be a lot more beautified than it currently is. So these are the programs that we are currently focusing on as a proactive approach for Vision Zero included. And this is a part of quick builds. Going on to the next steps, there's our capital projects. We implemented a few capital projects. It's probably next slide. Yeah, one more yeah, so capital projects. The capital projects are basically the projects which takes planning and design and construction. So it takes a little longer to improve some of the intersections and corridors. So these are the projects that are in consideration or in the planning phase. And some of the ones which were a little easier for us are tied with the paving of the coming years. We were able to do those projects in time. So the next is transformative level projects. The example of that project is taking a corridor and re-envisioning that corridor. Let's say we have a corridor where there are a lot of businesses, a lot of neighborhoods, and there is very high transit riders. There are very high number of bikers. There are very high number of pedestrian activity. So how do we take that and use that asphalt that we have to be able to serve every single one of those modes? And let's say now it connects to our downtown. So you have like a whole connection with that where people are primarily using different types of modes, and the road is only serving one particular mode. Okay, so that's where we kind of try to re-envision those. We are trying to re-envision most of our high entry network corridors, all our pikes, all our major corridors which have high speeds, re-envisioning it as how to make that friendly for every single road user that are using that corridor. So that is primarily for our engineering projects. Now, this was a major component of Vision Zero. Going to the next slide, there were a lot of lessons learned from year one that we saw after we started planning and implementing Vision Zero. And these are lessons that are very important to share with you all, because when we go on implementing this very big goal, there are a lot of challenges to it. First of all, it's a very hard sell. Several people, community members, they're like, there is no way that you're going to be able to make the fatality zero on a road. That's just no way. That's not possible. It's not something that's ever going to happen. So this is like normal responses, and it's not exactly their fault. So there was a survey conducted between people who were earning based on their income, and people who were earning household income below 50,000 actually rated safety very low. We sitting in this room and online rate safety very high, and those people rated safety as very low. That wasn't their primary problem. And if, let's say now you take another survey of those people and ask, how many times were you hit by any mode when you were walking? Primarily the population who has lesser income are either walkers, say transit, bikes, or other modes, or have one single car in the household. And now when you took that and then asked them how many times were you hit, actually you would find that as compared to people or household income over 100K, those that group of population has been hit a lot more times. So what is understanding that not everyone's going to understand the concept of safety with this change towards a systemic approach. So there are several lessons learned. There are several learnings on how can we help the community, how can we help our leadership, how can we help the region understand this particular goal. So embracing change is not easy. Commitment to Vision Zero is not easy. It's not gonna first time resonate with everyone. It's going to be a challenge to be able to educate and encourage. So that is something that you need to probably continuously work on, and we are continuously working on, and it's not the most pleasant journey. Redundancy. Making in a project, let's say we say, okay, we did everything, but now there are some possibility of a human error that's going to happen. One day a crash is going to happen because someone was drunk and walking on the road and just got hit. That's a very common scenario where someone is walking on the road under the influence and got hit and died. Now we say, okay, this was the person's fault who was walking on the road drunk. And I'm not saying against it, but just think of it with your own family, your own children, your own partner. one day they commit a mistake, they do something that they shouldn't be doing. Do you think that they should die that day? Do you wish death on them? Do you wish that because it was their fault, they should be killed? So just thinking of it in a more human way. Redundancy in terms of engineering is more like, okay, we have one measure that will help us, and then we have a second measure that will help us if there is a crash happen, even beside the first measure that was done on that particular corridor. So that's one of the key partnerships are a key, and I'm gonna try to come to that on some of the next slides. Working on priorities, very important. We gotta start somewhere. We gotta have a plan. Managing funding constraints, that's gonna be one of very critical ones is when council member asked me, how do you feel about this plan? I'm like, that's very tight. Funding's tight. Funding's always going to be tight. It's going to be us, how we get the most out of those opportunities. How do we get the most out of like the kind of improvements which are low cost but are going to give us the maximum benefits. Data, transparency, being transparent to the community, very critical. You sit in front of the a community and you be able to show all the data and projects and say, this is what we are doing the next year. The community is going to be very happy. They're going to be able to support you on those projects. These are something that we struggled with in year one. So this is what we are going to work on year two to be able to overcome. Our dashboards weren't perfect. We are trying to manage that. We're trying to make it better. We weren't able to get the maximum opportunity from funding, but we are trying to manage that as well. We are doing our best, working on the priorities. Not every project we prioritize on high entry network. Well, we are going to do that going forward. So these are some of the lessons that we learned from year one. So going to the next slide of funding. So funding is one of our major constraints. There is always an explanation. We can't have billions and billions of dollars to improve the whole infrastructure, but we have several opportunities here for funding for safety related projects, especially when region, a city, county, everyone's committed towards safety on a leadership level. It's very critical. If the leadership's committed to safety, these funding opportunities are going to be available to us. Dedicated funding when we prepare the capital improvement budgets for Vision Zero or for safety related projects. On a regional level, funding through the TIP. There are several projects that GNRC has been funding for bicycle, pedestrian, and even other modes, vehicular modes, like just operational safety as a whole. State funding opportunities. I could not fit that list in the slide. That how many opportunities we have with the state. We just need to leverage those opportunities better. Federal funding opportunities. There are several grants that we are given every year by our federal agencies, and we are trying to leverage those. There are several grants that are not mentioned here, but one of the one I would like to talk about today is Safe Streets for All grant. And I would talk about it in the coming slides. So going forward into Safe Streets for All grant, which we got in this year, finally in the second attempt, was on Nolensville Pike. We applied for this grant in the previous years, but this wasn't something that we just drafted when the NOFO was issued. We had this plan just right after the action plan was already set up and implementation plan was set up. There was a study of what Nolensville Pike needs. There was a planning level activity already there. I apologize, this slide is a little blurred, but I can speak to it. So the study, the planning was already done on Nolensville Pike. Nolensville Pike has been one of our corridors which has seen several fatalities, several serious injuries. I myself would never use that corridor. If I was there, I cannot use that corridor with any mode, like not even car. I could not drive. I was coming from a meeting from the corridor. I don't live on Nolensville, but I go for a lot of food places. There are amazing food places. But I couldn't drive at night. So, I mean, I definitely could not get out of my car and be comfortable on Nolensville. So there is, if you can't go on that corridor and, and feel safe while using any mode, and not even car, which is considered kind of the safest mode, there is something that needs to be done on that corridor. So the whole planning was done. We submitted this grant. So we had crash data. we had a planning already conducted on this corridor as what we need. This corridor is on our high entry network for all modes, including pedestrians, including bikes. So this was an overall high entry network mode. And we submitted this application considering all of those factors. On the next slide is our application experience. So we've submitted the first application. We went all in. We said we want to transform Nolensville. We just going to just completely change it. We're going to do a lot of capital level projects. We're going to put sidewalks everywhere, going to put pedestrian hybrid beacons, bus stop enhancements, everything we can do on Nolensville. And we had some dedicated funding for it too. However, we submitted that application with a very high goal of that, with our understanding of that corridor. We had all our data at hand. What feedback we received? This is the feedback we directly got from FHWA in the meeting. We had a very high safety impact. We were very good. Equity. We had a very high equity because that corridor is a very diverse corridor, serves a lot of diverse businesses. Effective strategies and practices. We were rated on medium because there are several capital activities or engineering projects that are not very high benefit to cost ratio. Like, for example, you consider sidewalks. Sidewalks have very high cost, and that's why, because of that, ratio becomes a little lower when you say, okay, you're gonna put sidewalks all throughout the corridor. That's why some of those strategies we had were rated as medium. Climate change, sustainability, and economic factors. We were rated medium. We did not mention a lot about the sustainability, a lot about how we are going to enhance the opportunities for people living around that corridor. Additional considerations. We said we had a lot of projects on there which were ready, but our project readiness was not fully there. We did not provide any buffer for construction. And that happens when you go through all those NEPA processes, when you go through the sourcing of materials. There is a lot of delays that happens at times. So we always have to provide buffers when we estimate that we are going to be constructing something in the next 5 years. And there are several other comments we were given that our overall funding opportunity was great. It made it to the secretary's desk, but we did not include buffer. We did not analyze for economic impact. We did not give better visuals. So this is a great learning opportunity for the areas that are going to apply for the next application, that these are the key indices which are rated in FHWA, and I think y'all can speak about it. The representative from FHWA can speak on that. So we refined our application from point there, and we made it so that we are able to actually do a lot of quick build and low cost safety measures in a faster way, because the community is more involved in it too. Like, it helps the community. They're like, they know we were granted something. Why are we not? Like, why haven't we implemented something in the 2 years? So the community asks for it, and it gets very tricky when we have very big projects. And this, so because this, and then in the second attempt, we were awarded this funding because we worked on all those measures that we were rated on, and we got a little less, and we went above and beyond. We went to the community, we engaged the businesses, we engaged everyone that was supposed to be engaged in this particular opportunity, and we refined this. Going to the next slide, it takes a village, more like a region right now, to collaborate, to be able to like show strength in the application, to be able to have a great application, to be able to implement several projects on that particular corridor. Mayor's office was involved, state DOT was involved, transit partners were involved, GNRC, everyone. Businesses were involved, Vision Zero Advisory Committee, Fire Department, community partners, and several others that are not listed here. Everyone came together and said, we need something on Nolensville. You talk with the businesses on Nolensville, they're like, we are tired of people hitting something on the corridor. Like, every time we hear a big, loud sound, we know something happened. And that doesn't affect our, that doesn't help our business. People our employees are terrified, when they come in by walking on those, if they get hit on that road. So that's why it really impacts the businesses. And so they were one of the primary stakeholders. So it takes a lot of collaboration to actually put this application and show that we are able to do this for the community. So this application was not really Nashville led. It was a community led application. Going into the next slide, successes impact future directions. So we had success in second attempt. We weren't successful in the first attempt. So we learned a lot from our failure. Impact was major drastic impact on the community that we led, and community is so happy right now. They're looking forward to the implementation. We have future directions on how are we going to implement this application. We had planning in place already, and we are going to start working on this as soon as we get into contract with FHWA. So we already have had most of this figured out before the application. The preparedness is very key to the application. And going into the next slide, this is one of the components of this application that was hidden, but very critical. So we talked everywhere on our Vision Zero plan about safety, safe road users, roads, speeds, and everything else beside post-crash care, which is actually one of the very critical components of Vision Zero. So we had a meeting with the fire department, and the fire department mentioned something that just struck with us. Is they said a lot of our staff is new, and when they're responding to the crashes, they're actually taking a lot of risk and themselves getting into a crash while responding to a crash. And that it does not feel very pleasant when you're in a car and a big siren is coming to, a big red truck is coming to you. So, and you don't know what to do. There are several new drivers, there are several old drivers who have certain conditions. So this particular aspect of Vision Zero was very important, and we decided to submit this application along with the Nolensville Pike as a pilot project to have about 5 intersections equipped with the emergency vehicle priority or preemption. This wasn't first in Davidson County because this was piloted by WEGO for their Murfreesboro Pike for giving preemption to the transit vehicles. And that was, I had a great learning experience with WEGO and had a meeting about how that worked. So this was very critical, and several cities are doing it. You can check it out. It's great. It's a great way to be able to respond to crashes in time, reduce the timing of the emergency vehicles to respond to any crash. And when the second matters, if a life can be saved from them responding faster, that really helps. They actually have to utilize a lot more resources right now. They have to dispatch several vehicles to one location because they know one of the vehicles or 2 of the vehicles are going to get stuck and not going to reach that location. So they actually have to dispatch several vehicles all together to be able to reach a crash location in time. And this also is something for our MNPD vehicles, not in this pilot, but this is an opportunity for us to look into the transit priority, to look into the emergency vehicle priority throughout the county, to look into the MNPD vehicles responding to the crashes in time. All of this together is that 5th redundant component of Vision Zero, and we would be including that as in our implementation plan going forward. This was our part of our grant application as well. So that ends. I tried to run it faster because if I can spend 20 minutes on one slide. So I apologize for going over time. And so this is pretty much a gist of all that we are doing and the Safe Streets for All grant. Let me know if you all have any questions, and if you want to know more about Vision Zero, you can directly contact me or go to our website on Nashville, next slide, at Vision Zero. And please feel free to ask any questions.
All right, well, thank you. Does anybody have any immediate questions, Eric?
Yeah, I was thinking about the transit improvement program that we might vote on in November and how Vision Zero is being discussed as part of that program, as like sidewalks are a big emphasis of that. And does at least the high injury network get like weighed into what's being presented as the plan?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the part of that is, yes, we are having that discussion that internally that is a big portion of Vision Zero. I mean, for example, we are doing several projects. We are in the planning phase of projects where we are recommending transit only lanes, and we are recommending converting some of those additional shoulders into transit lanes. So with that and tying it back, yes, and that is done as part of Vision Zero. Because Vision Zero, it's like, as I said, there are some projects is going to be quick build and some projects are going to be transformative. And those are the transformative projects that you are mentioning here. And those are going to be the part of our like a 5-year goal or a 3-year goal that we are able to, first we need to plan it so that we have every stakeholder involved and we do not miss out anything, and then going into the design phases and refining the design so that we have a good design, be able to serve that that need. I think on those corridors is the key. Like, what is the need? What are the top five safety concerns? What are the need on that corridor? And usually what happens is when we end up doing both of those together, I think the automatically, like, the safety gets tied to mobility and mobility gets tied to safety. I mean, it's not independent. It's a very interdependent relationship of mobility and safety, and they're really helpful for us. So yes, we look forward to that.
Is that being like, as part of the plan, is like, are we saying that the plan will address Vision Zero hydrogen? Like, is that part of what's being presented? Do we know that, I guess?
We do not know that yet, but it is considered because when we are, for example, it's like when MNPD created their location of enforcement, they did not use our high entry network, but it all matched up with our high entry network automatically because those are the locations that have the most need. So it is already like when we created the plan, we use the same statistics and the transit priority are when we are considering transit priority, we are using the same statistics. So they automatically match up. So that is going to be something that we will see. But yes, that's the goal.
I'm gonna ask a question about messaging. Seems like in Vision Zero, messaging is one of the most important elements. So for other local governments and agencies that might be thinking of going with a Vision Zero approach, do you have any lessons learned or advice on how you're messaging it to council, how you're messaging it to members of the public? Because it can be pretty technical, but I think if you do the messaging right, it can convince people that it's actually possible.
Yes. So messaging is something that is kind of very critical, very important, and something that has to be very dynamic too. It has to see who the audience is. It actually is very critical to understand who the audience is. If a messaging is to the council versus if a messaging is towards the audience. It's a very different type of messaging. Recently, we with the THSO grant, we were able to release 2 PSAs, and those were both like audience focused, where those were both where they were community focused, where we showed some incidents happening in those PSAs weren't very pleasant. If you haven't seen those, I'm happy to share those. Weren't very pleasant to see, but I think that's what is needed for the community to realize that the intensity of the issue. Whereas when we are presenting a message or messaging to the council, it is a whole different audience. It's when you're selling to the council something that you know that it's going to be detrimental to the future. So it's a very different types of messaging. It's scaring the council is not going to work much. Like, putting some scary pictures out there, and I mean, it's just one time and it's gone. So I think it's very critical as what your audience is looking like and what you're thinking for the future. I think that's what that's the lesson learned, as one messaging is not going to work for everyone. We actually have dedicated some funds to a small portion, but some funds to the education and encouragement piece of Vision Zero, as to how do we, and this is based on a full survey. So like a very comprehensive survey of there are drivers, there are pedestrians, there are transit riders, there are different types of modes, and everything different resonate with someone else. Like it's a human thing. If we realize it, that something is going to resonate with me and not with someone. Like if I do not have children, someone talking to me about relating with my children is not gonna as much work for me with someone who has children, and they can resonate it. Yeah, I take my child to work every day. I take my child to the school every day, and that's a normal thing for me. And yeah, I never thought about it. People comprehend things differently. With messaging, it's more of a human approach, human behavior approach, as to understand what kind of human behavior is going to be associated with that messaging, and what are we trying to convey. What are we trying to? Is it educational? Is it encouragement? All of those. There are several components of messaging, so I think those all need to be considered.
Thank you, Daniel.
One note for the group and then one question. On your funding list, add in multimodal access grant. It's my office's grant. It's just state funding. Don't sleep on that because it's a great opportunity. It's limited at $1.25 million, but for all the member organizations, I definitely encourage you. We'll have a new round this spring on that. The second was just like a really detailed technical question. With your assessment of past crashes, why did you choose the October to September kind of timeframe?
Yeah, because October was when council adopted Vision Zero, and we had a green light on last year, a green light on, okay, we are pursuing Vision Zero. We are going to dedicate this much funds, and these are the projects we are going to prioritize. So we just had a green light in October. So we wanted to kind of do the base before and after analysis.
I had a quick question. I think the holistic approach thing is so important. And the last demonstration grant, excuse me, for the emergency vehicles. So as I said, to bring every project into a safety project, is there? I know there's a lot of ITS projects kind of in the intelligent transportation systems in the pipeline for Nashville. Do they have preemption software at these intersections involved, like included in those ITS, or is that going to be separate through like a Vision Zero type project, or is that something that has been considered?
Yeah, so for this time, for the pilot, it would be separate. We had the option of combining it on Murfreesboro Pike, where we go install some of the preemption devices, and we spoke with them. The thing is, we had some lessons learned about some of those equipment that we used were not working very well with our system. So we didn't want to take that chance on or risk on, using that same equipment and running into the similar issues. So we actually changed it to Gallatin. So that was a consideration that do we already have some equipment installed? And we do for which we go installed. But right now the new grants, so as I mentioned, Vision Zero does prioritize on the safety projects, but it's not the only program that prioritizes on the safety projects. Like every project we are doing with ITS, with our operations team, NDOT operations team, like even the basic, like let's say they're releasing the paving list for the next 5 years. We are reviewing that paving list as what safety improvements we could do. This is not really included in Vision Zero implementation plan or anything. It is, but it's like not very, it's not something that we dedicated funding to. It's not something that, so it's like an approach which you have to integrate into the agency, as when everyone's looking into it with the lens of put a safety glasses on, and it's like, where are the safety improvements that I can do on this corridor kind of, methodology. So, yes, that grant, we are not pursuing preemption in any other grant, but once this pilot is done, we are actually going to try to do that with the other ITS projects, and because we would have some infrastructure in place for those.
I think taking a safety lens to every project is probably a great, just agency-wise, that's difficult to instill, but I think that's a great endpoint to have every project, safety project.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Puneet. Zach, we can move to yours. Let me pull up.
I'm right into SS4A.
Yeah.
I think, it's a good transition too. I mean, having that example for the demonstration grant. I think, because I'll go through this, but I think the bigger conversation is, implementation grants. Those are coming out. Those are what people are going after. And that's kind of where we kind of see the shift going. So it's really cool to hear kind of like the first person, like in Nashville and in Tennessee, really, to get the implementation grant. So we're excited for it. I know we don't know how we're going to manage it, but we're going to work through it together. So SS4A, there's two types. There's planning demonstration grants and implementation grants. So what she was talking about was the Knowlesville Pike. Yeah. So that's the implementation grant. That is, I think, the second one in Tennessee. Planning and demonstration grants. So it starts where you go after the planning grant to do a safety action plan. That's really like the bread and butter of SS4A starts with that safety action plan. And Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, but you plan on kind of doing one. I don't know. Can you explain?
Sure. Yeah. So what we had talked about is so that our locals can be eligible for implementation grants.
Yep.
Because obviously Nashville is through their Vision Zero plan, but some of our smaller communities have not necessarily done action plans. And so what we had talked about was incorporating the elements of a safety action plan into our regional transportation plan, which we heard from FHWA is eligible and allowed, so that in the next cycle.
It's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
To allow the locals to go after these implementation grants that we're really pushing. So I think it's a great idea. Go to the next slide. So these are some of the supplemental actions. So I think like now that the program is more developed, we want people to know that there's a multitude of things that you could access. You could spend this money on a lot of things if you had an action plan. You know what I mean? If you're, going for anything up on this list, obviously like safety audits, but it's the money is available and we want you to spend it. So it's kind of an exciting time, I would say, to kind of go after these supplemental activities when you have that action plan in place. Demonstration activity. So this is pretty cool. It's the quick build, that you're talking about. It's pop-ups. They need to get done in 18 months. That's the max, but a lot of these things could get done, in a week if you really put your mind to it. So I think that's kind of a cool aspect that's kind of emerging that we're seeing coming out of these safety action plans. A lot of people are going after these demonstration activities. And like you said, creating that story, how you had to come back the second time and really have that kind of story in place. And I think that those grant applications are more successful when you have all the data, when you have this, when it's really just robust, I think. And coming out of that safety action plan or the safe systems approach, just incorporating everything that FHWA just kind of hammers into everybody with all their emails. Next slide. Oh, okay. So yeah, so you could use these quick build strategies as a feasibility study. Know what works, what doesn't, and then you could actually go after another grant to do a more permanent implementation grant. The biggest thing, I guess, coming back to it, MUTCD, the 11th edition's out, using that, like you said, creating that story, showing those examples, you could pull it right from the MUTCD. Just make sure, that's incorporated throughout. Next slide. So safe systems approach, sorry, this is not my my slide.
Keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. Just run through it. So pilot programs, safe systems approach, incorporated throughout. This NOFO's out again. It just was released yesterday. So there's an opportunity to apply. This really just kind of covers everything that, that is available to go after with this program. Next slide. So this is the big one, implementation grants. This is where, you could actually do something actionable and put it to pavement, basically. So yeah, I mean, this is available. So key consideration, we kind of had this issue with Knoxville, where they went after a grant and didn't know why they didn't get it. It was because the city of Knoxville got one, a pretty hefty implementation grant. So the federal government tends to pick and choose regionally. They try to spread the wealth. So like if Nashville's going for one and GNRC wants to go for one, you might not get it at the same time. That's kind of what we learned. Those are kind of the lessons learned. There's a limited amount of funding every year available. So I would just encourage, everybody to plan together, have those conversations, communicate, know where you're going after, know who's going after what. I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway that we've learned on the past 2 rounds, for sure. And yeah, so very successful in, the MPA. And we want to kind of see this continue, and we are. So we're excited to kind of see where this grant, the SS4A grant, kind of goes and how it adapts and how it morphs. So what we're here for. So any questions? I mean, feel free to reach out directly to us, or you can reach out to ss4a@dot.gov. So
yeah, I think a important point to make is, as locals and MPOs and states take safety planning more seriously, there are dedicated sources like SS4A.
100%. And it's not going anywhere. So that's kind of the cool part, to see it evolve and how it has been evolving, and how kind of people are taking advantage of it to, kind of create these really cool opportunities. So.
Yeah. And I think it also takes, a different, setting aside funds in each level. So Nashville's already set aside annually for their budget, dedicated safety money, not only to help meet a local match, but also to do projects locally through local funding. So you don't have to go through the federal review process. And then of course, for bigger projects, for planning grants, we've got SS4A and then dedicated safety money through TDOT as well. So it seems like the trend is moving in the right direction. As long as we continue to have more dedicated sources, we can achieve Vision Zero, and not just in Nashville, but in our other communities as well, for sure.
No, I'll jump in with a comment. I think the demonstration opportunities are really cool. We worked with Nashville with Smart Growth America, so a separate program, but to do a demonstration pilot on Dickerson. And I think they learned, can talk more about it, they learned a lot from just putting those cones out and figuring out where people were crossing that wouldn't have happened if they didn't do some very temporary stuff out there. So that's a really big opportunity that's not available a lot of other places through this grant, I think.
Yeah, we're like, the level of interest in those is kind of through the roof, which is, it's cool, it's available. So
I would just say that on that same note, a lot of these planning and demonstration grants help us to put in permanent infrastructure or any kind of countermeasures at those locations. For example, on the Dickerson Pike, the pilot, or sorry, the demonstration we did there. Now we have planned, or we are designing the permanent countermeasures in that area. So that really helps for us to see the operational aspect of those demonstration and how it helps and any kind of lessons learned from that particular demonstration or planning activity and taking it to the next level of implementation. I think that those grants really play a very critical role in that particular side.
Question on those demonstration projects, and I know maybe the email contact is the way to go, but like you referenced, like use MUTC guidelines, and I'm still processing the new ones, but traditionally those are not things like cones. They are delineators. They're things that could be in place for a long time. Now, obviously they get worn and broken.
So the new one has like the quick build. I think it's a new section. I think.
Yeah, and the part there, I'm curious, like, is it a requirement that they, like, I know politically often these are things that you may take out, but is it a requirement that they are removed if you put in delineators and things like that?
No, it's interesting because, TDOT has, these, their design standards are more stringent than MUTCD in a lot of ways. So I think they really just kind of look to see that those elements are like interwoven. If there's a longstanding relationship, like we know TDOT's design standards are great. We just want to see that they're there, and that they're considered.
So
Did I
temporary
answer
is
your
more
question?
well, that's part of the question, sure, but the other part is like the temporary aspect of that. That's not like a policy requirement that it is removed if it is successful.
No, not that I know. That could be a good question for SS4A at DOT.gov. But if you want to, CC me on it for sure. Yeah, it's interesting too, because we're not allowed to say, oh, that's a good idea, or oh, that's a bad idea. You know what I mean? So they have more freedom. So we can't.
Well, I'll say there's probably not a lack of ideas in this room, but it was really cool to see. I went on the website and look at the past awards of the last 2 years. They have everybody obviously it's not going to be the full scope and the full like the full paragraph. It gives you an idea, high level idea what the project is, the award levels, kind of idea how much the budget is, and you can see there's like 600 I think between the 2 years so far.
Yeah,
you can sort those by implementation, demonstration, supplemental planning. So you can really get an idea of what other people are doing that maybe have been successful. And you can even sort in Excel and you kind of see like, hey, I want to see how many people have done this style of enforcement or this style. And you can really see like, has that been successful?
It's interesting too, because like people are in different stages of, their grant. So it's like people know what has been successful, and a lot of those other communities are reaching out to, other communities, and the conversations that they're having have been really good and productive. So I would encourage that as well to reach out.
Great. Thank you for providing the information. If anyone has any specific updates they'd like to communicate to the group, I'll start just quickly. Our agenda packet on the second page and third page is just a fact sheet for BPAC. To go through what the role of the BPAC is, as well as a couple links that might be useful. And then our 2024 meeting calendar, obviously, we haven't gone through exactly what the agenda is going to be for each meeting, but these are the dates that we've set aside. The last Thursday of each month from 10 to 11:30 is what folks voted on. So if you have ideas for something you'd like to share, whether it's a project you finished recently or a grant program you'd like to talk about, TDOT, good example of that. Just let me know and we'll get that on the agenda. So other updates people would like to share?
So I was asked by leadership to give a quick update on our vulnerable road user safety assessment for the state of Tennessee. I don't have any great visuals for you now, but happy to talk more about it either offline or come back to another meeting and give you some details. So the VRU assessment is a federally mandated kind of an addition to our strategic highway safety plan that gets revised every 4 or 5 years. But this assessment is new and is dealing just with vulnerable road users. So people walking, people bicycling, other non-motorized transportation. At the same time, last year, Tennessee passed a state law requiring us to do an assessment that was very similar. and report out to the top 5 communities that we found dangerous corridors for pedestrians in. So we did both of those last summer through the fall. Identified both state and local roads where injuries were elevated compared to the statewide average. It has recommendations for improving the infrastructure and long-term solutions. And what we did was create a high-risk network as priority area for improvement. We didn't want to use the term high-injury network because that's kind of a Vision Zero term that includes motorized travel as well, but it's our high-risk network. So the high-risk network is the roads segments in the state of Tennessee with the highest vulnerable road user crashes. The 25, we cut that at 25% of all the crashes, and that those occur on about 150 miles of roadway in Tennessee. So Tennessee has over 96,000 miles of roadway. So 25% of the crashes are occurring on 0.16% of the roads for vulnerable road users. And this is 2018 to 22 data. To qualify for that, that's 8 VRU crashes per mile minimum. We also found a high correlation of crashes to commercial corridors and transit stops, as you might have suspected. We did a pedestrian fatality research with UTK that studied up to 2019 and showed the same thing. So this was kind of an interesting confirmation of that as well. So the state law requires us to report those to the top 5 cities with the highest number of pedestrian safety problems in the GNRC area. As you might expect, the large cities, the 4 large cities were all on that list, and then we have the addition of Murfreesboro in the GNRC. So Murfreesboro had 5 road segments, 33 VRU crashes on those segments, which accounts for about 2.5 miles and 12.8 VRU crashes per mile. Nashville was also on it. They had 118 road segments on it. That's 1,256 VRU crashes on 59 miles of roadway. So that's about 21 VRU crashes per mile. We sent out letters last week to comply with the state law on that to the mayors, the transportation or public works directors, things like that. So they're aware of this effort. The entire VRU assessment that we completed last year is available online. It's a couple hundred pages, but it's got some interesting things in it. We are updating the strategic highway safety plan this fall. And with that, we will continue to update the VRU assessment as an addendum to it. We're going to update it to 2023 numbers. We want to refine the tool, make sure there are no errors in the data. Work more with partners like GNRC because they have a huge wealth of data. Again, if you guys need anything, they have got it. We also kind of want to make this tool available to communities to use. That was one of the reasons for sending those letters, is to start a conversation. You can come back to me, come back to my team, ask for the data on it. We'll dig into it with you. Maybe we can create this high-risk network, make it more publicly accessible to look into. It's meant to be able to pinpoint places we need to work on with our limited resources, and can update a level of traffic stress tool and start applying those for hopefully our projects, but maybe your community projects as well. So that's our quick update.
Thank you.
Any questions on that?
Yeah, great stuff, Daniel. Did you say that was local roads as well as state controlled roads?
Local and state, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's small.
Thank you.
And that was important to us because we have our HSIP Highway Safety Improvement Program funding from that we have our own pedestrian safety project program in, and those we also use these metrics help that, but they can go to state and local roads. We don't differentiate when we apply that funding. We just try to find the highest need spots for it.
Right. Huh. Related, I remember that, or I don't remember, that's what I'm asking you, that 15% rule, something about 15% of the injuries or crashes being vulnerable users triggered a requirement to spend 15% of HSIP. Has that been triggered again since I was there?
I think so Robert was on TDOT's team up until last year, and I think we are below that now. Pedestrian deaths were one of the only numbers to go down last year, which we're very happy about. There's still way too many. But, and the trend seems to be continuing this year, which is good. So we're at about 10 or 11% of that. And so we hope that continues. Again, I don't think we're going to put any less effort or resources into it because we don't trigger that rule.
Cool.
But we're happy to see that going below that threshold.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions or updates?
Our planning grants are, trying to get final decisions made on those, so hope to be able to make an announcement on those in the next little bit. I know Nashville has a project in there for, forget the corridor it is, but,
Old Hickory Bill.
It's Old Hickory.
yes, I knew, yes, that one. And that kind of coincides with a PRSI as well, so I talked to Daniel on that, so it kind of definitely fits in, kind of bringing up that area all together with that, so hopefully we'll get that announced as well, here in the next few days, because we got to stay on schedule to get those notice to proceed, so expect good news on that hopefully in a few days.
Thanks, Jason. Anything else? All right, well, thank you guys for attending. I'll send out a follow-up email with slides as well as information that we talked about in this meeting and information on our next meeting. So look for that, and thanks for coming.
At the review, the official